Hello there. Hey guys, this is Toby Morrison from Australia, Melbourne, Australia, and on the other end of this call is a lovely, beautiful lady called Erin from America. Welcome, Erin.
Hi, thank you.
So today, we're going to talk about your story because you're quite an inspiration as well, and from the journey that you've been through for the last 6 years, you've got a lot of, I guess, knowledge and experience, and also you've come out the other end of chronic fatigue syndrome a lot better than you probably ever thought. So welcome, and just before we start chatting, how did you even find out about the program or myself?
Through Instagram, of all places, and then I looked on YouTube and started watching your videos, and then I was just like, wait, this guy gets it, and I was like, I had been trying everything by myself for so long, and I was like, wait, this guy actually gets it, so I was like, I had to reach out to you, and so that's how.
Yeah, and before you reached out to me, I mean, like you said, you tried everything. What did you try? What were you doing?
Well, the funny thing is I feel like why your program is so key for anyone with chronic fatigue is that you've been through it, and I feel like I went to a lot of top chronic fatigue doctors. I was fortunate enough to do that, but without knowing, there's so many symptoms, and you're just kind of trying to balance everything, and I didn't have a clue about exercise. The only advice I get from doctors was oh, exercise, but don't exercise too much. And I was like, what does that even mean?
Yeah.
I'm used to pushing myself and being an overachiever, so I thought that I was just trying to do too much, and
Yeah.
it's
And what was your background? I know, ironically, you were studying medicine at the time.
yeah, I was biology, and so I was trying to figure out if I wanted to go to medical school, or I couldn't really make a decision. And but then as soon as I got chronic fatigue, I was like, oh my gosh, this is ridiculous that I'm suddenly bedridden at age 22, and there's so little help and positivity, and so I just I have to get better and help other people. And so yeah, I wasn't sure with med school or whatever how that would work, but yeah.
Now, just for the people out there listening, because obviously, just like yourself, previously before doing the program, you're sitting there, you've got all these symptoms going on. You almost feel like you're an alien because you're like, what is wrong with me? Just to give viewers an idea of where you're at, what was going on? Were you completely bedridden? What kind of symptoms did you have?
So I was so this was 2010, so I guess is that 4 or 5 years ago? 5 years ago now.
Yeah.
And I became completely bedridden for 4 months.
Wow.
And I don't really remember a lot of it. I feel like my cognitive stuff was so not there. I feel like in a way that's kind of a blessing because you don't even know what's going on really. And so, I wouldn't shower for 3 days at a time. I wouldn't change my clothes, and that's so unlike me. My mom would just be like, you have to do it. And I was just like, I just can't even get out of bed.
Yeah.
And so it was a huge struggle. Couldn't drive for 4 months or anything. It was just in bed basically. And I gradually after that started to improve a little bit, but I still had no quality of life whatsoever. It was still symptoms full on, and maybe I'd have periods of a couple weeks or maybe a day here and there that were better, but it was just it was no quality of life. I wouldn't see friends until this past year. I wouldn't see friends typically for 4 to 6 months because even that was just too much.
Too much to handle.
For my body. And so.
And what about your symptoms? Muscle pain, nausea, headaches.
Yeah, so the brain fog was really severe with me, and I just feel now finally I'm my cognitive ability is really coming back. I feel like my personality was totally gone for 6 years, and so it's amazing to have that back after I was just oh, why can't I be myself? It was so frustrating, but it's you have to remember you're going through something that's so serious and this physical illness, and so you have to be compassionate for yourself because it's rough. And so I had the cognitive, but then I had the exhaustion, being bedridden and pretty much, not being able to do much at all. And then like body pain, and I had a lot of digestive symptoms. That was a huge thing that I just had the worst trouble with that. I'd see so many gastroenterologists and they'd be like, we don't know what's wrong with your system. Like, it's so screwed up. You're not digesting food. I was nauseous all the time, headaches all the time. I became really sensitive to light. I have wooden blinds on my bedroom window, and I had to add curtains to it because it was just like, for a while, I called myself, I was turning into a vampire because I couldn't handle the light at all.
Yeah, light sensitivity, that's normal.
Yeah, so it was a lot of stuff.
Now, like, obviously, before you started the program, you tried lots of different things. Just name a few of the people you kind of saw, and I mean, even you mentioned that you saw some of the best CFS specialists in the world.
Yeah, so I had found like some doctors that had helped me like holistically, and some gastroenterologists, and I started going to Stanford and seeing Dr. Jose Montoya, who's amazing, and I just adore him, and he helped me with kind of managing some symptoms, but it was, things got a little bit better, but it still was, I had no life. I mean, it was still my symptoms were ruling my life.
So it felt like he was almost like managing rather than actually progressing and living back to normal life.
I just feel like it's so many things that like all need to come together, and it's just like this big, huge puzzle. And so that's what's so tough, and that's why with you, it's like like the key points to work on, and you set it up so easily that like we can follow it, and and so that's so important.
Now, so fast forward. I remember when you actually applied for the program a year ago or so, you actually felt like you didn't need it.
Yeah, I know. I feel like that's one of my problems, is I can do everything on my own and like really independent, and so I was just sort of like, maybe I had really bad pneumonia at the time, and so I was sort of like, well, maybe when I get over the pneumonia, like, I'll see how I do. And so I had been, when I found you and like talked to you a year ago, then I started following your like Facebook posts and stuff, and I still was watching your YouTube, so I was following your advice at that time. And as soon as I started just following the tips on doing the right things, my energy my symptoms disappeared. Whoa. And I could pretty much do whatever I wanted.
Okay. So,
like magic.
It sounds like it. And this is the thing, there's so many amazing stories that have come out of this program, and they're almost too good to be true.
Yeah. It's surreal. I mean, even right now, I just am kind of like, is this like, I've never really felt this well in my whole life. I think I had a really intense gluten sensitivity my whole life, and other things that just got worse over the years. And so now it's like, oh my gosh, this is like life, and oh my gosh, it's amazing.
So when you started the program, what kind of improvements did you see straight away? What was the first thing that started happening for you?
Well, I think the main thing was like just finding someone that had recovered was huge. I mean, you don't hear about a lot of people that recover, so I had some, like, in the back of my mind, I had decided, like, there was some hope somewhere before I found you, because I was just, like, I'm determined to, like, get better, but, I didn't have the right tools. And then, but then it was, like, I just through following you, it was, like, my mindset started changing because you're so inspirational and positive, and so that was kind of, rubbing off on me and realizing what I could do. And so that progressed. But yeah, it was amazing. I mean, a couple months after I talked to you initially, I went to Europe for 3 weeks with my sisters, and that, like the ones who were like, we're tired, we need to rest. And I was just totally fine. And it's like, I finally like learned so much about my body that I was able to do whatever I wanted, which was amazing.
So that trip in Europe, you were actually able to manage that and go through it?
Yeah, like my sisters were, they have no health problems, and we went out one night, and I was just like, oh, this is so amazing, I'm out in Europe, and it was like 4 a.m, morning, and they were like, okay, like, we need to leave and go to bed. And I was just like, okay, I guess, like, it makes sense. But, and I was totally fine, like, the next day. Like, I mean, we were all slept in, but
Yeah.
It's just amazing. It's just kind of surreal how my symptoms just disappeared.
Phenomenal.
Yeah.
Now, I've got a few questions to ask you. Obviously, we'll have a bit of a laugh as well. But so obviously, you started improving straight away. You got more energy, and you started to read your body well, which is great. But what did everyone else around you start noticing about you? What did they start saying? Especially your family.
Well, they just were like amazed because I mean, it had been so many years, and I think I was just before. This is another thing. Before I found you, I was so terrified of like the future. I just was like, okay, all these doctors had told me, just forget the life you once had, like, just ridiculous things that no one should ever say to anyone.
No.
And I was so scared that in 20 years or something, I was going to still be in like the same exact spot, like in the same room, and just not. And so it was so scary.
Yeah. Well, it's reality. I mean, it does happen to people because they get told the wrong information, and they get told that nothing's ever going to happen. And when you start to believe that nothing's ever going to happen, then nothing will ever happen,
Yeah, it's so true. And so I think that was like a huge part, because then I started to kind of like focus on what I could do and like just get rid of anything that was negative or anything that was going to drag me down. And so, I mean, everyone's like, I mean, I'm just a completely different person than I was a year ago, to be honest.
So,
and that's a huge part of you. And like, I mean, me getting my life back is all because of you. And the person I became is, I mean, a lot of it's because of you. So I'm just so grateful for everything you do.
I appreciate it. But more importantly, you're the one that did the work. And as I say to you, and I've said to you before, that although that what I do is great, you're the one that's creating greatness for you. So always remember that. Now, so what did they just? Did your family and friends just go, "Wow, like Erin's back"?
Yeah, we even like joked. I mean, my best friend. We used to joke. I was like, okay, one day when I'm better, we're gonna have like an Erin is back party, and I just joked around with my best friend about it, and then I texted her a couple weeks ago, because actually another thing is I saw Dr. Montoya up at Stanford after I hadn't seen him in a year and a half, and he was just like he spent an hour with me, and he was just like, I'm pretty sure the chronic fatigue is going away, which was like pretty remarkable to hear from a guy that sees thousands of people. So that was just like, whoa. But anyways, back to my friend, we always joked about an Erin is back party, and then I texted her. I was like, hey, you can start planning that party, because I just know I'm just doing so amazing, and yeah, everyone's just like, can't believe. I mean, on every level. I mean, it's just not just like physically, but like mentally, like just all the way around. Like,
yeah, you're very grounded, but you've got a lot of what's the word? It's almost like wholeness. So you're a new you, but you created a new life yourself, and it's absolutely phenomenal, and it's inspiring not only for myself, but and the inner circle members, or the rest of the guys in the online program, but for people out there who don't have the privilege to be in the program right now, who don't really know how good it is and how life changing it can be for anyone if they commit themselves to helping themselves. And I mean, you went through it for 6 years. It's a long time, and it's super hard. And I'm sure that most people look at you now and go, "Oh wow, you look great. She's so positive. She's so happy. She's so inspiring." But there were some hard times there.
Definitely. I feel like that's what's kind of like with you too. It's like people see you and they're like, how is this guy, sick? And I kind of like look at myself too, and it's just like, yeah, there were definitely hard times, and it was quite a process, and definitely the most challenging thing like I can imagine going through. But it's just, you just can't ever give up, and you have to keep figuring out what your body needs. I mean, we're all different, and we all have different infections going on. We have different like financial like responsibilities, different pressures from different things and stress. But I just really feel strongly that like your program really ties it, is the foundation for moving forward and regaining your health with chronic fatigue.
Totally agree. I mean, the reason why I started this program was because it was everything that I needed when I was sick. So it was quite easy for me to develop, because I just used to picture myself being sick and going, what does this boy need? You know, and obviously it was what that girl needs and what that man needs, and, you know, so forth. Now, what's your best result to date in terms of, you know, I mean, tell me one of the most exciting things that, you know, I don't know, there's so many different things for you, but I just feel like, you know, best result in terms of, you know, getting your life back. What's the biggest thing you've done like lately that you probably never dreamt of?
There's a couple of things. So one was obviously the Europe trip. Another one is that, well, this is another thing. This last weekend, I went and drove up to LA, which is like a 2.5, like it was a 3-hour drive with traffic. I haven't done that in 5 years.
Wow.
Because I never felt like, I just was like, that's way too much for me. And I did it, and I went to a music festival the next day with my sister all day, and I drove home the next day. Then I got home, and I was like, oh, I want to go visit some friends locally, and so I went out, and so I just like, so it's pretty amazing. It's just amazing.
Wow. How does it make you feel? What does it feel like when you do that? Like when you do that for the first time, you try. It's been 5 years.
It's really weird, and it's just like, and I forgot, because I was kind of a little bit like hesitant, because I was like, okay, I need to make sure that like I, you know, can rest if I need to and everything. But then I got in the car and I like put on all my favorite music, and then I was like, I forgot, I really love driving, like when I have good music, and so it's all really just surreal. And then another thing was I've been surfing again. I haven't done that. Like, I mean, that's a lot of energy to just like paddle in itself, and I've been doing that, and I'm always kind of like a little bit aware of like how much I'm doing, because it's pretty still, you know, in the newer phases of getting better.
Absolutely.
And so that, and then like I started doing yoga, and in a couple months I could do headstands, and a year ago I would have never even like wanted to, or would have never, I don't know.
Wow, that's crazy.
Able to do that. And so that's pretty amazing. And then the other thing is, I started taking this nutrition class just for fun, because I really am passionate about like nutrition and naturopathy and stuff. And I've taken it in the past, but I'd only go to like a couple classes, and I'd have to leave early because cognitively it was too much. And so I started it 2 weeks ago, and I could sit there for the 3 hours, retain everything. Last week, I asked a really good question, and it was so funny because after the class, this guy came up to me and he was like, hey, like, can you explain that question like you were asking? Like, he's like, so he was asking me, and I could explain it to him perfectly, and he was like, oh, thanks, and he was all excited, and
wow.
And then this girl came up to me, and she was like, hey, she's like, can I get your notes for a couple weeks, because I'm going to be gone? And so I was just like, oh, okay, now I'm the star student. But that's pretty huge, because when I'd taken that class before, I didn't even want to ask any questions, because my cognitive function was so not there that I was afraid of looking stupid because I wasn't retaining what I was supposed to.
Wow.
So that in itself is another huge thing.
I feel like from bedridden chronic fatigue syndrome to surfer girl, traveling chick, party girl, nutritionist chick, A-class student, like seriously.
It's just crazy because I don't know. It's just like, I think another thing is I became really aware of myself on like every level, and like really started having a vision of like where I wanted to be. But it's just like I just became aware of it, but not like I was like thinking about it all the time. But I just kind of like the other night, I have a list of like quotes that I've been keeping for like years, and I read over them the other night, and I was like, I'm living all those quotes now. Like those quotes that would inspire me about like courage or, you know, all these different things. And I'm just like, I'm like living all those now. And it's like the person I like always was like, or like people that inspired me or like how I wanted to be. It's like, it's all already kind of true now. And I'm just like, how did that happen in like a matter of months? It's crazy. And I mean, again, it's a huge, huge part of that is all because of you. So I'm very grateful.
You know, like I said, you know, sometimes I don't know the impact I have, and obviously, you know, my head's always down, and my job is just giving as much as possible, you know, because that's what I'm here to do. That's what I'm born to do. So, it's nice to, take a breather and have these conversations with people like yourself who have done the work, but also, changed your life. You're changing lives just by changing yours. You make everyone else around you happier and more health conscious, So another question: what's the best part about the online recovery program in itself? Obviously there's so many different facets of it with the membership, where you get to chat to all the hundreds and hundreds of other people, which I know you're a big part of, and then the actual program itself that works on every area of recovery. What is it for you that you love about it?
Well, I think there's two main things, and that's one of them is obviously the program. I mean, just setting it up so easy for us to follow, and then just automatically it's hard at the beginning because your body's under so much stress and a disaster, but it's if you stick with it and you're gonna notice results, and it just gets everything back in balance the way it should be. So obviously the program was extremely helpful in that, with just getting everything back in balance. But then the other thing I think is so important is the support group, and I just have made such amazing connections with these people. They're just some of the most genuine, amazing people that are so supportive. And when you go through it on your own for 6 years, and people just can't understand it, and you feel like an alien. And I mean, some people try and understand, and you hear people are telling you all these crazy things, and it just gets so difficult to deal with. So it's when I finally found real genuine people that were oh wait, I have experienced that too, and all these things that I felt were oh, what's wrong with me? It's everyone with chronic fatigue experiences the same thing. So I feel having that community and people you can relate to with it is a huge part of it. And that's ultimately what made me be able to move forward too. That was, and let go of a lot of stuff that was holding me back. Yeah,
which is awesome, and I'm so glad that you're open about that, because I'm sure there's a lot of people at home who are in a bit of self-denial. I certainly was for a few years, and we're human. We're really good at being in self-denial. We're good at holding ourselves back, and just scared to move forwards into the unknown. But you've created your unknown into a very positive, uplifting one. Now, this is a bit of a tricky question. Where would you be if you didn't take that leap of faith a year ago, starting the program?
Well, I would definitely still be in that mindset of fear and about the future, and how is what's my life going to look like? Am I going to be in the same bed in 20 years? Or but it's kind of funny because so it's my birthday in 2 days, and then my last 2 birthdays, I found out on my birthday that I had pneumonia, and I had to start. They put me on 3 months of antibiotics each time, and which ruins my whole system. Yeah. And so I couldn't celebrate either of my birthdays last 2 years because I was too sick, and we would say, oh, we'll go out to dinner, later. But I was so sick for literally the first time 2 years ago for 5 months. I couldn't barely get out of bed I would force myself to go to doctor's appointments or try and get movement in. But and then the last year I was sick for a good, I think maybe 2 months or so with that. And so, and looking at my birthday, it's in these last 5 years, I never could celebrate my birthday. So that just shows you. I think 1 year I went out with some friends for dinner, and I canceled it right before because I was just I'm too sick. I can't think. I just don't. That doesn't sound fun. But my friend was coming from out of town. She was driving down for it, and so she's like, "We'll just go." And so a couple people went, and I felt awful. So it wasn't very enjoyable. But now it's the first year that I can do whatever I want for my birthday. So that's
you deserve it.
What?
And you deserve it.
Thank you.
You do. It's and that's something you'll soak in on the night of your birthday with your family and friends. Is for the first time. It's you know what. I've created this, and this is for me, and I am allowed to enjoy this. And
the other thing is too is I know that a year ago, if I hadn't joined your program, my symptoms would still be ruling my life. I know that. I would still be thinking I was doing some of the right things, but not really knowing. And I mean, it would just still be this like constant cycle of not improving.
Now, on another question, what's the difference between myself and the program compared to anything else out there for you?
I think just, well, you've been through it. So I think when I saw you, the reason I was like, I have to talk to this guy is because you knew like the exercise background, and see, no one in America, I feel like, knows about like how to actually like work on that, like building up the right way. I feel like I just had no advice whatsoever, and I was just like really determined, so I was just like, I'm just gonna push myself and force myself, and that's not the way to go.
No. And there's lots of misconceptions as well about exercise, and I mean, you're proof. Like you are absolute proof for a woman who is gone through chronic fatigue syndrome and can go surfing. That to me and everyone else shows you that it is possible to regain your strength and stamina. It just has to be done in the most safe, effective way, long term. And it hasn't been an overnight process. It's been a year of doing the right work to get you there.
Yeah, and I think just doing the right exercises. I mean, I exercise like less than I used to ever, and I'm in like better shape from just doing the right like restorative kind of exercises. And I don't know, I don't even feel like I like need to necessarily exercise, and I'm still in good shape, so it's pretty amazing.
Yeah, well, you've got a great balance of everything: nutrition, sleep, restorative movement, mindset, everything, and passion and purpose, which is what you're doing, which leads me to my next question. What is next for you? What's next for Erin, the surfer girl?
And another thing that is pretty big too, that I've been living at home with my parents for the last 5 years, and my parents just recently said to me, they're like, okay, like, you're healthy enough now and to move out, and that's kind of like, what? Like, kind of a shock and surreal again. I just was like, oh my gosh, I couldn't really believe. But it's true. I mean, I can go out, and it's like if I would have tried to move out, years ago, I'd just be like laying in an apartment, like by myself, like wouldn't be good. So yeah, that's pretty huge. And then now I'm really passionate about, I said, nutrition and naturopathy, and so I want to hopefully start studying that at some point. I'm not really like jumping into anything too quickly because I want to make sure my health is my number one priority right now, and kind of ease into things. And then obviously I just want to do as much as I can for chronic fatigue syndrome, because it just was like mind-boggling, like what I went through, and like how I couldn't get diagnosed, and heard all these insane things from people that like, I was crazy and all this. Like, I had one ER doctor because I was so sick, and I had moved up to LA right after college, and they were just like, well, and so I went and I was like, I'm having chest pains, I'm having like headaches, I'm having exhaustion, stomach pains, and they're just like, well, maybe you're pregnant. And so they and I was just like, I'm not pregnant. And I was like, I can guarantee you, I'm so sick, like I'm been laying in bed alone, like I'm not pregnant.
Yeah.
He just like, he's like, we'll do a pregnancy test, and they're like, okay, you're not pregnant, like you can leave. And so it's just like so many. I was so frustrated, and so just like, why doesn't anyone can't like give me a diagnosis or like help me at all? And I just felt so kind of like, this is ridiculous.
Well, I think sorry, go.
No, so I just feel like that's like my life's passion now, is to like help others. I mean, even doing this, like, I mean, I was so sick and was told that, I just to like give up and like, I would never get my life back. But it is possible if you do the right things, and it's not a quick fix. It's something you have to work on, and that's consistency. And so that's with you, like you teach the right things, whereas I've been doing kind of the wrong things. So that's why it's really important.
Yeah, and I think you'll make a fantastic coach long term, and I think everyone who's probably going to watch this video and who sees this right now they'll all agree with me that you are inspiring, and I'm sure you're going to do some amazing work in the future, and hopefully you can do it alongside us with CFS Health, I reckon. I'm kind of excited about that.
Thank you.
Now, just to finish up with, there's obviously a lot of people who aren't in the program, who are really struggling and have tried everything just like you have. What would you say to those people, in all seriousness?
I would say, just you never can give up. Like, there's always hope, and you just have to find people that support you and positive people and create kind of a network and with that. And I just think you have to become really good at listening to your body and keep trying to figure out, what you can do to help yourself. And I think another thing is I think going through this alone for so long, I thought I was always weak. I just thought, like, why can't I do the things that everyone else around me doing? And I hadn't felt well, like, my whole life. And I think you have to realize, like, how strong you are for getting up every day and, like, trying and just dealing with such a serious illness that is so misunderstood and, like, so many people don't believe. And so you just have to find that strength, like, within and find the right people that support you, and then just keep listening to your body, keep trying to figure out, what your body's asking for, and, like, your mind, and, like, and spirit, like, on every level. And I think that is really important. And and also, I feel like I'm a really good example that, I thought I had been doing everything pretty well on my own before your program, and I think I'm a good example that everyone really can benefit who has chronic fatigue from your program. I say that with 100% confidence because I tried everything, and it's amazing. Like, what you've created just through an online program, it's amazing, and how much that can change people's lives.
Much gratitude, and you've been lucky enough to see some of the best people in the world, and you still feel like without this program you wouldn't have got there.
Yeah, definitely. It was more just like, okay, maybe we can help you with this part and this part, but even, it's just like if I was still reacting to symptoms with, like, stress, if my stress was still bad with, like, my mindset, and if my nutrition was okay, it's just there's so many different parts. It gets so overwhelming to get them all in balance, and that's what's so key with your program, because you do all of that, and that's just such a strong foundation for everyone with chronic fatigue.
Covers everything. So if someone was like, should I do the program or not, what would you say to them?
I wouldn't hesitate. I know the one thing, people financially, I know it can be really tough. It's like when you can't work.
Yeah.
But I would just say, start saving, putting a little money away here and there. And I feel like even with just the support group, that changed my life. And I wouldn't have become the person I am right now without the support group.
So what you got out of it is more than you put into it.
Oh yeah, it's like invaluable. Yeah.
Amazing. Now, two more questions before I go. So the first one is, how would you describe myself? And if you could never talk to me again, what would you say? What would you say about the program and myself?
You are one of the most genuine, like, passionate, compassionate, inspiring people I know. And what you've done for me, you've given my life back. So obviously I'm going to always be so grateful for that. But aside from that, like, what you're doing, like, trying to help, change, like, chronic fatigue and, like, spread awareness and bring positivity to it, like, on a global level, is pretty amazing. And then just, I feel like with any people that come in contact with you, they're inspired, and I feel like they leave better, than, after interacting with you. It's like they come away, like, feeling better, and you're just a shining light, I guess, to the world.
I appreciate it. Now, I like this question, this last one, because it's, I genuinely learn a lot from other people's experience. But what's one of the biggest things you've learnt from having chronic fatigue syndrome? Because I know there's a lot of doom and gloom about it, but, like, you're a pretty amazing woman right now. What you've come through, like, what could you take away from it? Like, what was one of the blessings?
I think, one of the biggest things I think is gratitude, like, and, like, learning what is and what isn't in control in life. And, like, I think those are two big things. And it's like so I think those are two main things. But then for me personally, it was learning. I think I had, graduated college and I was like, oh, what am I going to do with my life? And I was always trying to please other people and, like, trying to, like, make my parents happy. But everything didn't feel fulfilling, and I was just like, oh, I don't know, I can't commit to something if my heart's not in it. And then I got chronic fatigue, and I was like, oh, well, there's your answer. Like, I feel like I need to, like, this is what I need to do. And I think I learned that life wasn't all about me, and, like, life is all about people. And I think that's another thing through you that a lot of the people learn is that, like, everyone does have a story to tell. And just like going out in the world, I'm out in the world again, and I'm just like so excited to meet new people. And before I was so scared of meeting new people because I had been put down constantly for being sick, and people not understanding and saying things. And so it's just amazing to go out into the world like super open again. I had been trying to like become open to the world again, but I just was so hurt. And so through you and like the others that I could relate to in the support group, I mean, that really was so healing for me.
Phenomenal. Thank you so much for talking today. Like, even I got a lot out of that, and here I am, the founder of it all. So I'm sure everyone else at home is going to be blown away. But your story is amazing, and keep shining on because you're just you're going so great, and you're only going to continue to keep learning, growing, and evolving, and becoming the best version of yourself. And just enjoy it.
Well, thank you so much for everything.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks so much, Erin. We will speak to you soon.
Okay.
Thanks so much.
Okay, bye. Thank you.